morning, everybody. Welcome to Concordia. I can't tell you, I'm trying really hard not to cry. I'm just so happy to have friendly faces here at the community. My name is Julie, and work with the marketing team, and we have just been so eager to welcome folks back into the community for educational events, because that is so much a part of who we are. And so we are pleased to kick it off with some of our very great friends and community partners. The Buckelew team is fantastic. OKC Mature Moves have helped us with many of our residents who have moved in. And so if you ever want to talk to somebody about their experience, they live right here and you can. So it's fantastic. We have a few more folks trickling in, so we do like to be prompt and start on time, but just given the COVID, situation and trying to make sure we've got everybody checked in, we'll start in just a few more minutes. But I thought maybe what I might do is let Nikki and Shannon, you guys can introduce yourselves a little bit if you would like to talk a little bit about your background. Do you want to do that? So are you prepared for that? Okay, great. Well, we are so glad you're here, and we'll kick off here probably in about 5 minutes. So, all right, great, thanks.
Hey guys, good morning. Good morning. What I might do real quick, we're going to kind of do this as we get rolling, but I think it might be good to do it while we're waiting on folks to get settled in. Nikki Buckelew, Shannon Stiger.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. We have not tested the mic, so Chris we're playing with this a little bit, so just know we'll get it right. How's that sound for everybody? Yeah. If I break out into song, I get really loud, so Chris has to stand back there and play with the microphone.
Let's encourage her not to break into song.
So everybody's here for the square dance, right? All right, April Fools. No, I'm just joking. I've been trying to come up with a great April Fool's joke, and it'll come, I promise. It will.
I can skip it.
All right, Shannon doesn't do jokes very well. She didn't like them. I do them all the time. So if she rolls her eyes, you'll know that it was a joke. Okay, so we've got a little flip chart up here. Not really, but kind of. And so we're going to make do with that. Shannon's going to make some notes for us. And what I want to know is, what did you come here today with the burning question about? So if we answered one question for you today, it would definitely make it worth your price of admission. Don't forget this was free, right? So what would you want to make sure that we cover in today's conversation? Just throw some things out there. We're going to write them down.
Prepping for the move.
Prepping for the move. Okay, what specifically is important to you about? What kind of question about prepping? When to start, how to start?
Who can I find that will help me clean out a house that I've been in for almost 50 years?
Okay, who can help me, specifically, who can help me clean out a house that I've been in for
almost 50 years?
Almost 50 years. All right, does anybody else have that problem? They've been in a house a long time and they're wondering what the heck am I going to do with all this stuff and how am I going to do it? Yeah, okay, good.
And I had a husband that was a pack rat.
Okay, and your husband used to be a pack rat, and so there's a lot of stuff. Okay, good. We'll definitely talk about that. All right, good. What else? Anybody else have a burning question they came here with today? Yep.
Is it the right time for me to do it?
Is it the right time for me to do it? Hey, I'm so glad you came today because that's kind of our topic, isn't it? Yeah. So we're going to answer the how to come to that conclusion question, right? Because we can't tell you when exactly the right time is, but we can give you some ideas on how to consider that. Good. What else? Yep.
How does the long-term care insurance work for independent living at all?
Okay. How does long-term care insurance work for independent living? So we'll talk about that. I may have one of the ladies from Concordia come up and answer that question when we get to that, but sure, absolutely. What else? Burning questions. Keep in mind, we have a topic, which is, when is the right time? But we're happy to cover a whole gamut of stuff, so we've got plenty of time to do that. So is there anything specific other than, when should I do this?
That's a big question.
If not, that's a great list we got started. Okay, yeah, so good. So one of the things that I think is important, and the reason Julie wanted us to maybe do a little quick introduction is that, so she says, we're good, everybody's in? Okay, great. So we'll just do a quick introduction then. So you know context. It's always nice to know where the speaker's coming from, right? Like what is our background? How do we come to these decisions that we're going to share with you today? So Shannon and I have been working together now for 5 years plus, and my husband and I have been selling real estate here in Oklahoma City for over 20 years, working specifically with downsizers. Okay, so Shannon is with the Buckelew team, which is our real estate side. I do kind of everything. Somebody earlier said I'm a jack of all trades. It's because I've been doing this long enough now, I've had to be, right? So we have two divisions of what we do. We have a move management division, which helps people with the decision making and then the move process. And then we have our real estate team. And so when we talk today about this topic, please know that we're coming from a place of education. We're not here to sell you on us. We're not here to try to get you to use our services. None of that. I just simply wanted you to have that information so you would know how we got this information ourselves, okay? Through years and years of experience and talking with people who have done exactly what you're thinking about doing right now. Does that sound fair? Yeah? Okay, great. So when you ask a real estate question, just so you know, if anybody does, I'm gonna let Shannon answer it. And if I start to answer it, just Shannon's gonna interrupt me because I have a tendency to answer all the questions because I'm just used to presenting by myself. So Shannon and I have a
We're gonna get good at this duo thing.
We are. We're gonna work on. So we're practicing today, presenting together. So you guys give us a little grace. Would you do that? All right. So let's do this real quick to make sure everybody knows how it works. Give Shannon a round of applause.
Thank you. Everybody, please give Nikki a round of applause.
You know what that means? That means we're both going to do a great job, and I'm going to let her talk at least as much as I do. Okay? Chris is laughing. He's like, no way. All right.
We'll see how that goes. I'll be excited with 33%.
Okay, so on your table you have a few materials. And one of the things I want you to pick up and take a look at is this little handout right here. It says Stages of Readiness on it. And this is what we're going to talk about first. And then we're going to make sure we answer your questions. And we're going to have some conversation. Okay, we're going to have some conversation. It should be interactive as much as you want it to be. You can sit and listen if you want, or you can interact with us. The reason that we're sharing this is because what we found is that in a room like this, with this many people, 40 or so people, we've got some people are at different places in the process, right? That makes sense, right? You may be even here with a spouse or a significant other that's in a different part of the process than you're in. Okay, so we want to make sure that you understand when we're answering these questions, depending on where you are in the process, your tasks or action items that you plan to take will be different. Okay, this is not a prescription for everybody. Let's take it one stage at a time.
There's not a right stage or a wrong stage. You're going to go through each of them probably at different times, and there's not a specific length that it's going to take you to go through each stage. Each person's different. But each of you will probably go through all the stages. It's individualized.
And it's not linear. No. Yeah, we talked about that too. It's like you might go from one to the next and then back, and so just know that there's no right or wrong way. All right? So let's just go through these real quick and we'll talk about them because we have clients that have been through every one of these stages, and as we help them make the decision of when should I do this, or by the way, let's back up one step. Should I even do this? Is this something I should do, or do I even want to do it, right? Okay, so the first one on here, let's talk about denial. Denial is the first stage of readiness when people begin to contemplate a move. Now, not just a move to a place like Concordia, but a move anywhere, right? So whether you're even thinking about moving just to another house or downsizing specifically, moving closer to your kids out of state,
Moving in with your kids.
Exactly. So here's how denial works. Are you ready? I'm going to do a little role play for you. Some of you, this will sound very familiar. Are you ready? I'm never leaving, and you will have to pull me out of here in a pine box. Anybody ever heard that one? Yeah. The women in the room are going, yep. Okay. Men, you've probably said it. Now, I'm generalizing, but I am going to say this because I've been doing this a very long time. Women have a tendency to be more prone to want to move, and they have to talk their male counterparts into it. Not always, but the majority of the time, okay? Shannon, have you heard this one lately? I'm staying put. I'm staying put, okay? Most of the people who say that they're going to stay put are doing so because they don't know what their other options are. And by the way, when most of you think about a senior community, how many of you, before you saw a place like Concordia, imagined a nursing home? Right? Most people who say, I'm never moving, I'm staying put, it's because their only other recollection of where they would move is nursing care.
And also what we were talking about earlier, I'm staying put because I will never make it through all of this stuff that I have lived here for 50 years, so I'm just going to stay.
It's the easier option. Yeah, it's not a bad thing, it's just the easier option. You'll carry me out in a pine box, only old people live in those places. I've heard that many times too. And then the last one on here is, the food at all those places is bland. Now, why did I put that under denial? Because people that do not want to move and they're in denial that they might ever need to move under any circumstance will come up with any excuse they can possibly find to not move, okay? And food happens to be on the top of the list. Now, I know for a fact, I eat here frequently, not since the COVID situation, but prior to that, that they have amazing food here. How many of you have eaten here and it's like eating in a very nice restaurant? Yeah, several people. So, denial, I just want to say this and then we'll move to the next one. We all want to live in a place that makes us feel and experience the most independence, right? No one wants to be in a situation where you're dependent on someone else. So denial is simply the moment in time prior to a decision to even consider an option that's different than what you currently have, okay? That's all. It's not a bad thing. Denial is just a place that we all, and my dad even says, you know, he goes, I'm never going to need to move. And I'm like, really? Because my grandmother said the same thing, his mom, and then she unfortunately had to live in long-term care for a while because she had a stroke. Right? So denial is not a good place to be forever because what happens is there's no planning. If you stay in denial forever, people don't plan.
Well, and if you stay in denial forever, you lose your choices when you no longer are able to make those choices. So that's a key part of coming out of denial is being able to embrace the choices and the options that you have.
So let's go to thinking. So the next thing people do is if they're not in denial, then they don't go straight from I'm never moving, you're going to have to leave, pull me out of here in a pine box to, hey, I'm going to go to Concordia. That's not how it works. People start to think about their options, right? They start to think about or consider. It's very much an intellectual, almost internal conversation with yourself. And some of the things I've heard people say to me is, downsizing wouldn't be a bad idea. Right? Or this house really is too big for me. They sit there and they kind of look around and go, I really don't need this big old house anymore. I wonder what would happen if. Now the if is lots of things.
Or sometimes it is what would happen, I just fell outside because I tripped myself watering my plants and I know that I was laying there for 10 minutes before I could get up. What would have happened if I couldn't get up?
Exactly. So it's usually a concern about a future health event for yourself or someone else, or it's concern about one's mental ability to continue to take care of themselves. The if can be a lot of things. What happens if my spouse passes away? What happens if my neighbor moves? What happens if I can't get in-home care anymore, right? So that if can be a lot of things. My friend downsized and seems happy. We see this a lot. Someone else in your life makes a decision to move and that you watch their situation and you see them doing it well. And so you go, maybe I should think about it, right? Again, think. Not do something yet, but think about it. Thinking about it's a good thing. And this one, women in the room mostly, usually, it would sure be nice to not have to cook anymore. All right, shall we do a show of hands of how many of you are thinking that? Yeah, the men are going, I don't know what the problem is. The food here's good at home. Yeah.
Okay, so the male equivalent of that is that you would not have to mow your yard anymore.
Yeah, I didn't have room on here for that one, so we just left it off.
Same principle, just flip sides.
I'm not biased at all, am I? Yeah. All right, at my house, my husband cooks. And we laugh because one of the biggest things that causes couples specifically to move is the desire to not have to worry about dinner anymore. That question of what are we doing for dinner? And Chris and I had this conversation the other night. He didn't ask me the question, and I didn't ask him. Instead, he said, how old do we have to be to move to Concordia? Right? Because there is some age restrictions, and so I said, well, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer every day, right? All right, so Shannon, once people have been thinking about it for a while, they start to plan.
Correct. And the planning is when you begin to think, okay, so where we might want to take a look at some of those places, where could we move?
And so you might actually go take a tour or come to something like this, right? So where you're planning for it.
Or you begin to look at where your friends may have moved or where your neighbors moved. They may have moved to a community, they may have moved to a different neighborhood. So there's lots of different alternatives of where they move to.
And then let's find out what our house is worth. Having been in real estate for a long time, that sometimes is part of the planning, because you need to know what your budget is for what you're going to do. And in our world, we find that a lot of people have no idea what their house is worth after they've lived there for so long. They have a tendency to rely on sometimes unreliable information. And so they'll call us to come out and give them some reliable information as part of the planning process.
And I think a huge misconception with that is they think if you're calling out someone to get an opinion, that means that we believe we're going to sign on the dotted line. I can tell you traditionally as a real estate professional, when we come out, I don't have a sign in my car and I don't have a lockbox in my car that I'm going to put in your yard that day. We're going to have a good conversation, and it's about planning. I've been to several, actually a couple of your homes here, and it's just beginning of a conversation and a relationship that we can get you that information.
But that's about communication too, right? Because I will tell you, we train realtors all around the country to work with people who are downsizing. And one of the biggest challenges is they have to understand that when they come to your home, that you might be in the planning phase and not in the action phase. And they'll be disappointed. They'll come out and they'll go, oh, I went on this appointment and they didn't want to list their house. And I'm like, well, were they in the planning stage or were they in the action stage? And they go, what do you mean? Well, see, we understand that. So Shannon's always asking, what is your goal?
Correct. And as a homeowner, you can sure say that too. That I'm in the planning mode. I'm gathering information. So you're help setting that expectation as well. And then you're also letting that person know what information to bring and to come prepared.
So when someone in the household says, you know what, maybe we should have the trim painted on the house before we put it on the market. That's a planning thing, right? If you're starting to, if you come out and you put your name on the waiting list at Concordia or another community, that's planning. That's not action, right? You're putting your name on a waiting list is planning. It's doing your research. So planning flips into action much more quickly, by the way, than thinking turns into planning, or denial turns into thinking. Because once you've done your research, you could decide overnight that, hey, I did my planning, and guess what? I'm ready to take action. So what does action look like?
When you put a deposit down on an apartment, that's taking action. That's picking a timetable, you're picking dates. It is moving things up, and it's a commitment.
Yeah, and then same goes if, let's say, you hire a real estate agent to put your house on the market, or you meet with us to get the move organized and plan for what you're going to do with the stuff that's left, okay? Now, that can be part of the planning stage too, right? So remember, interviewing professionals is part of the planning stage. You should not be obligated to sign any contracts. You shouldn't have to put any deposits down. You're doing research. Okay, so if someone says to you, oh, are you ready to go ahead and sign? And you go, you know, no, I'm just in the planning stage, right? Which is totally fine.
Interviewing professionals is probably one of the most underutilized things that people do, because it is part of the planning. It gets you the information you need, and you can compare. We recommend that you talk to more than one person, that you're looking at more than one move management, that you are comparing those things to make sure it fits best for you.
Let me tell you why people don't do that. This is what we hear from people. I'll say, well, gosh, have you interviewed people? Have you gone to multiple senior communities? Have you done your homework? And they'll say, well, no. Sometimes they'll say, I don't want to waste anybody's time. Okay? Do you guys feel that way sometimes? Like you're wasting somebody's time. If I go to the car dealership, okay, let me give you the difference. Let me use cars as an analogy. Anybody ever bought a car? Okay, good. So you go to the car dealership on a Sunday afternoon when they're not open, because why?
There's no one there.
You don't want to be hassled or pressured, right? So people will do that. Now, they're in the thinking stage, right? When they get into the planning stage, what do they need to do? Go when they're open so they can test drive it and find out what the prices really are, right? So now they're in planning. Car dealerships, car salespeople want you to be in which stage? Action. That's right. So they're working really hard to take you into from planning to action very quickly. And so that's why I say in the planning stage, you should not ever feel guilty about test driving a car and not buying it, right? Right. So why would you feel guilty about test driving a community without signing a contract? You come out, you have lunch, you have breakfast, you come out to an event like this, you have a tour, you sit down with them and ask them all about the financing options, and then you leave and you go home and you think about it, right? Or at the end of the meeting you go, you know what? I've been in planning for a while and what you said today makes sense and I'm going to take action. I'm going to put down a deposit. That's up to you, right? But here's what I'm going to tell you does not happen. When you leave after not putting down a deposit, Julie and Marilyn and Kelly don't walk back down in their office and go, those people, how many times have we met with them and they have not signed a contract? That does not happen. Here's what happens. I'm going to project this. I don't really know because I'm not in those meetings, but here's my perception. They go back in their office, they have their regular meetings, their staff meetings, and they say, hey, who have we met with this week? And they talk about it, and they go, okay, what can we do to help Mr. and Mrs. Smith get prepared? Now, part of getting prepared might mean they may say, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Smith did not really like Concordia. They didn't think it was the best place for them. What other communities can we recommend to them for them to look at? Or what other apartments do we have, or what other units do we have that we could show them that might work better? That's how that conversation goes, okay? Nobody's angry, nobody's aggravated, nobody's put out that you've been test driving and that you haven't made a decision. I promise you. Same way with Shannon.
I start saying you just described our Monday meetings at our office. So that's why she knows what yours looks like or what she thinks she does. Because it's part of that conversation. It could be that they get to know you and it's that relationship and we've talked to you and you know that it may not be the best option for you to sell your house, that you're going to stay there a little bit longer. That's okay. Or that you're looking at different houses, or that this community is not right, that we help you find another community or a different option, or you're moving out of state. There's lots of options.
Or the timing's not right.
Or the timing's not right.
Okay, so I'm going to address anybody in the room that might not be thinking about moving themselves, but it's helping someone else. So maybe a family member, a parent, a family member. Okay. What happens sometimes is we are in planning mode for the family member, okay? So I know I talked to somebody whose daughter's here, right? I think there are some sons here. There are some folks here on behalf of their parents. Well, guess what? Sometimes we do lots of planning with good intentions. And we go out and we plan and we plan and we plan. And then we go and we tell our mom and dad, hey, guess what? We've been doing some planning. It's time for you to take action. How does that play out? How many of you are going, they better not come to me and say that, right? But what we see is that happens a lot, doesn't it, Julie?
Yes.
It happens a lot. And when you're not the one doing the planning and you're just in thinking stage and someone presents you with something and says you need to take action, then what has happened is you have skipped a stage, haven't you? Yeah. So for those people in the room who are helping a family member, I would encourage you to do your planning and then make sure that you allow your parent or other family member to do their planning. And so the question is, hey, I've been to this community, I found out some information that sounds pretty valuable. You and I have talked about this in the past. I took it upon myself to do some planning for myself. How can I help you do some planning? Would you like me to assist you in doing some planning by sharing with you what I've learned, right? So that person, if they're still in denial, how is that conversation going to go? Not well, right? Usually not well. So I'm going to encourage you to pick up a book. Those of you in the room that are family members, there's a reason for everyone to pick up the book, by the way. If you're an adult child with parents that you're helping make decisions and you guys are collaborating, the book is called, ready? How to Say It to Seniors. How to Say It to Seniors. Now, there's a subtitle. You don't have to write this down. It's closing the communication gap with our elders. The book was written for middle-aged people to better communicate with their parents, okay? It's excellent for that. Now, if you are the parent, if you're considered in his book a senior, then you will want to pick up the book because it's very insightful in terms of the agenda and the reasons why your children do what they do and say what they say, okay? Very insightful. The author is David Solie, S-O-L-I-E. S-O-L-I-E, David. Excellent book, $12, $15 on Amazon, or you can check it out at the library if it's available. I have done that from time to time. No, Julie?
You can, but I would buy it because you're going to want to highlight
Yeah,
it.
you're right. You're going to want to write in it. Yeah.
I've read it twice, and I'm probably getting ready to go back and read it again. It's a great book. When you're talking about this too, if you're the child that's taking this information to your parent, rather than presenting it as this is what's going to happen, if you're in the planning and they're in the denial, well, you're skipping the thinking. So if you ask, this is what I found out for me, so what are you thinking? And even as a parent, if you're presenting this or sharing this with your child, they may not have thought about it at all either. They may be in the denial. So asking them what they're thinking to help them begin to maybe step out of denial and into the next step, which would be thinking.
Okay, so real true story. A friend of mine who is moving to Dallas, to a community much like Concordia. She used to live in Dallas, so she's very comfortable with that area, and she wanted to move back there. So she and her husband, they're both 79. He has children, she has children. It's a blended family. They married after their spouses passed. And she was on the phone with her sons and told one of her sons, who's an attorney, that she and her husband were decided to move to Dallas to a CCRC. And he thought she had lost her mind. Oh my gosh.
It was a shock.
It was a shock. Because they had not shared with their kids that they had even been thinking about it. Okay?
And Nikki, how long have they been thinking about it?
At least 3 years. Okay, because they had friends who had moved to this community when it was built, and they'd been down to visit. They had been doing their thinking, but had told nobody they were thinking about it. So, their son, who is an attorney and who is single and lives out of the area, doesn't see them on a regular basis, thought that mom was moving to a nursing home. Okay? And he's like, "What's going on? What's wrong? Are you losing your mind?" Because she's a little scattered. She's a little scattered, and you might think sometimes that she's losing her mind, but she is not. She is perfectly good. She's been scattered since she was a kid.
That was going to be my question.
Nothing has changed.
This is not new.
This is not new. But her son, because he hadn't had an opportunity to go into the thinking stage, right? Freaked out. Freaked out. Called his brother. They both scheduled plane tickets to come to Oklahoma City that weekend, got on an airplane, came out to see if mom was okay. Mom is irritated, right? Very much irritated. Her husband, by the way, is an attorney also, still practicing. The sons want to see the contract. The sons want to know what the heck's going on. And whether they tell them, it's none of your business. Okay, so I tell you this because we want to honor the people in our lives who are trying to support us, right? We want to make sure that they have the proper planning too, so that they can help us. Now, everybody's family dynamics are different, so I'm not here to tell you how to operate your family. I'm not. I am going to say that more times than not, when you spring it on your kids right before you're moving in, it creates a lot of problems. It creates problems for us, doesn't it, Shannon? What does it do in our
There's some
world?
interesting conversations. And I've had a few tell me, and I'll be honest, that say, we're not telling our kids where we're moving. And it's purposeful. But again, there's still thought there. And again, there's family dynamics that nobody else knows about.
Your kids may not care, and that's fine. But if your kids do care, then it would be good to talk with them. Because I'll tell you, this fast forward with my friend, they were skeptical that the community down in Dallas, who is perfectly reputable, just like Concordia, a not-for-profit, been around a long time, they thought they were being scammed. He said, they're scamming you. You're going to give them all this money because they had not had their opportunity to do their due diligence. You guys get that? Okay. They also will, sometimes in our case, if we've gone in and met with them, they'll come in and they'll say, oh, this realtor can't be legitimate, right? Then they start to question our motives. And then all this work that you've done, all this research that you've done has to be done over because they want you to meet with a realtor that they know to make sure that you're getting a legit deal. Does that make sense? So unless you're telling them you're thinking about it and then you've done some planning, be prepared for a little bit of a, sometimes pushback depending on your family dynamics. Yeah.
Okay, so Nikki and I talked about this list before she printed it. And on here, it's under action where it says, you told your kids that you are moving. That was a discussion with us about where that should be on this list. So it doesn't, you don't have to wait till the action period to have this conversation with your kids, or with your family, or with your loved ones, or your neighbor, or whoever your significant other is. This is a really good time to have it during, I mean, you could be having the conversation during the denial phase. And it's the denial that you're just not happening, I've done the research and this is what I'm doing. It could be during the planning, but it should be an ongoing conversation because it's an evolution. My mom's 70 and I can tell you we've been having this conversation for 20 years. And it has changed. And I won't give you the colorful dynamics of how that's changed. She's rather unique. But it has evolved. So I can tell you we have it consistently. And it changes about every 5 years. Her opinions change and it evolves because she's changed and she's evolved.
And she updates you.
And she, oh yeah. Oh,
Does
yes.
she do that without you asking or do you have to ask?
Well, okay, so normally she updates me when I leave one of these seminars and I go tell her, this is what I learned, Mom, and this I'm so excited about. And she'll go, this is the update. And then she'll give me the update so that I don't try to teach her something new. And actually she now knows to say, you just taught one of those classes, didn't you, Shannon? Yes, Mother, I did. Well, this is the update. And then she begins to be proactive because I began the conversation or she begins the conversation.
The goal here is for you to be in charge, okay? Let's just be honest. None of us want our kids to have to make this decision. Can we agree on that? Right? So the question was asked, when is the right time, right? How do I know when the right time is to do this? Well, I think we can all agree that the right time is when you are in charge of the decision, yes? Okay. Whenever that is for you. Now, having gone through these stages and doing your planning, there are people who tell me, gosh, Nikki, I feel like I should make this decision. I've been planning for a long time. And I say, well, how long is a long time? And they say, well, several months. Well, some people may plan for years, maybe 10 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 2 years. The staff here that are in sales don't want me to say that because if you're just starting to think about it, they would love for you to get into action, but they understand, you guys. They understand that they need to plan for as long as they need to plan to get their head wrapped around it, if that's what they want to do. Now, I'm going to say something because I'm here in the house where this was said, and I think it's appropriate. Can I quote Clyde on this? Yeah. Love this story. So Clyde Buchanan, who lives here at Concordia, how long has Clyde lived here? 7, 8 years? Yeah, yeah. He's probably, sometimes I think people think he's on staff here because he pretty much does as much as some of the staff members do on a daily basis. He's just very active and involved. But I did a focus group with the sales team and some of their consulting team and different people and their boards of directors. Clyde was in that room. And we did a flip chart. And on the flip chart, I wrote, people move to Concordia to blank. And I said, let's fill in the blank. And it was quiet. Nobody said anything right away. They were contemplating their answers. And Clyde blurted out, people move to Concordia to die. I said, Clyde, I can't sell that. Can't sell that. He goes, well, Nikki, he said, if we avoid this conversation, we are missing the boat. And here's why. He said, this is a big decision for people. And even though they're independent and they're capable, active, whatever, he said, when they move to Concordia, they are planning for what? The possible future, right? They know that they're probably going to live here until their final days, right? So he's right. People, when they move to a community like Concordia, where you have every level of care available to you, are planning for all of the future possibilities. Now, when you start doing that, does that require a little thought? Yeah. It's not like saying, hey, hun, let's go to Florida on vacation. And you go online and you book a hotel, or you go to the islands, like you said. It's not something you decide in a year and you just do it. For most people, there's a lot of contemplation involved in this. And if you don't, here's what happens. I have a couple that I recently helped move, didn't know this until yesterday, moved to a community like Concordia where they have all levels of care and decided to move out. Because one of the couple, not both, but one of the couple did not feel prepared but made the decision not feeling completely comfortable with the decision. Does it make sense? So then there was unrest, right? How does that affect a couple, right? When you have to make a decision where both of you aren't in agreement. So sometimes it's necessary, by the way, for couples to have some really hard conversations.
Well, and part of that can be the opposite as well, or the other way. That you're planning this and you know that you do want to live in a continuous care community, but maybe not yet. But I know this house is too big and I need something in between, and that is going to be our path. We've had a client, wonderful lady, had a huge home in Choctaw, and her plan, it was to downsize to an apartment downtown because it was on her bucket list to live in downtown in an apartment, to be able to travel or use the trolley and get around because she can physically do that. And her plan is to do that for 2 years. So she's leasing for 2 years, and then she knows that she'll be moving on to a continuous care community at the end of that 2 years. So that's her plan. She thought it through, and that's part of her, she used bucket list as the term, but that's her steps in her process. So it can vary based on person.
Now, here's the caveat, if you will, okay? Most of you already know this, so I'm just probably repeating what you already know. But you know how the stock market works, right? So people that are invested, when you invest, it's really great. You want to sell when the market's what? High. And you want to buy when it's okay. So what happens is we watch, if you have money invested, and you watch it go up and up and up and up and up, and what happens? You want to sell when? When it hits the very top. But how do you know it hit the top? It took a turn, right? So what happens is there is a very short, small window, and can you predict it with 100% certainty? No, not even the best of the best of the best of financial people out there can guess when that's going to be. So they kind of have an idea. So you end up usually selling a little bit what? Before it goes down, or you wait it out and you sell right as it starts to go back down. Hopefully not, and hopefully it goes down like this and not like this, right? So with a continuing care community like Concordia, the challenge that I see people having is they go, you know what, I am not going to move until I am ready. And how do they know when they're ready? They go, well, I'm doing really 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 well, I'm not doing really well. That window is no longer available to you for the life care. And so, unfortunately, you're planning. You have to make the decision before you have a health event that would preclude you from qualifying, right?
So there's some self-awareness there, but there's also the point where you have good feedback and awareness from others that you can get that input. So the instance that I had, she has family, friends, and she actually already has her next place picked out. So she's very self-aware and knows that opportunity. So you have to know when that window is for you. So it is before the window closes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we don't know if we're going to have a stroke. We don't know if we're going to be diagnosed with some sort of degenerative illness, Parkinson's, whether it be Alzheimer's, whatever it means. We don't know when that's going to happen, if it's going to happen ever. We don't know. We hope that it's not. So the issue, like Clyde said, when Clyde was in that room, he said, Nikki, he said, places like Concordia, CCRCs, are for people who are realistic and who are planning ahead. Now, there are people who have moved here, I can assure you, who have lived in independent living since they moved here. They've lived well into their 90s or beyond and not needed assisted living, memory care, or long-term care. They don't need it. They're still in independent living, doing great. If they were at home, they may or may not be doing as well because there are other obstacles, right, to living that you don't have when you live in a nice place like this. But that person could easily say at 95, well, gosh, I could have stayed home a little bit longer, right? But how do we know? We don't. Yeah.
It's a total picture.
Yeah.
There's benefits to where you're moving and what is valuable to you at that point in your life. And that's part of the planning and the decision making that you have to do.
Okay, so let's talk about the planning. So what happens during planning phase? Here's what we see right here. Prepping for the move, and does the long-term care insurance work in the independent living? So when those questions were asked, I'm going to make an assumption that the people who asked them are in planning mode, right? Because by answering those questions, what we're doing is we're helping you complete the puzzle of planning. So that once you've completed that puzzle of planning, you can then, what? Take action. And for some people, taking action is moving. And for some people, taking action is choosing not to move. Either way, you're taking action, okay? So let's answer those questions. Julie, I'm going to start with the one for the long-term care insurance. They asked, how does long-term care insurance work in independent living? And so I don't want to answer that because I'm afraid I will botch it up. So I'm going to let you answer it back there. So Julie's in the back. We gave her a mic.
Hey
so
guys,
that's where she is.
sorry about that. Made Shannon get her steps in, huh? It's a very good question. And honestly, and I hate doing this, but it depends. It depends on the type of policy you have. Some people have a home health rider or portion of their policy that can go into effect while they're in independent living. They would go on claim, and it will pay for the care. It will not pay for your apartment, but it offsets your expenses. And that's been, extremely beneficial to people, especially if they just need some assistance temporarily. Maybe they've had a stroke or something like that. They've gone to rehab, they've come back home, they're not really quite ready, and their spouse isn't a good caregiver or capable of caregiving, or maybe they don't have a spouse. Those would be reasons that they might go on claim with their long-term care insurance. But typically speaking, the majority of the people do not access their long-term care policy until they enter assisted living, memory care, and nursing. So is that fair to say? Anything y'all want to add?
Okay, so perfect. So Julie, before you give away the mic, I know you all have an amazing staff member here that is happy to review long-term care policies. How does that work?
Yes, so if you, and I recommend this to anybody, if you guys have a long-term care policy or a family member has a long-term care policy, Rhonda is on staff with us. She actually is a licensed agent. She happens to be our healthcare administrator, so she runs the ship for us. She's a very busy lady. So basically what we request is that you give us a copy of your policy. She will look over it, jot down some notes, and then set a time aside to visit with you about that. The summary page is not what she needs. She actually needs to look at your policy because the summary pages are very vague and will leave a lot of holes. But she's happy to look over it, and then usually what she'll do is she'll give you a list of questions to go back to your provider with, or your agent if you happen to know who that is. A lot of people can't remember who the agent is anymore, they're not there. But you can go to the provider, and she'll say, okay, clarify this. And oftentimes it has to do with memory care because it's very vague. And you may think that it's covered because it says something about cognitive impairment, but then, when push comes to shove, they have a loophole to get out of it. So you can specifically say, I would like in writing that this is covered. and
that's part of planning.
Yes, absolutely.
Part of planning.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All right, so does that answer that question for you? Okay, so I would encourage anybody that has long-term care insurance to have their policy reviewed either by someone here, even if you're not planning to move here. This is a courtesy that they do. Now, obviously, there's a priority. So if you're moving here, that's going to be a higher priority than if you're not. That's me saying that, not them saying that. I'm just making that assumption. The other thing is, if you don't have a copy of your policy, go ahead and request one and get it so you have it in your hand. Make sure that your family knows you have it, because I can't tell you how many family members have called to say, hey, I need you to help move my parents. They're moving to assisted living or long-term care. And we ask them, gosh, do they have long-term care insurance? And they go, I don't know. Well, that would be really important to know because the cost can be defrayed significantly if they know that, right? Okay.
With this though, people will often think, I have long-term care, so check the box, and that planning is complete. That's not. You do need to have it reviewed, because just like any other industry, the long-term health care has changed over the years. So if you bought it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, those terms have changed, what they mean changes. So it is very important to have that continuous planning, not just a one-time check mark.
Did you want to say something? Come up here so they can see your pretty face.
I'm sorry, guys,
It's important.
Nikki and I both teach a class called The Gift, and it is just so, we have come to know how important this communication is with your family, and there are so many caveats to this. So as Shannon walked away, one of the things I thought about was, your agent may be wonderful and very trustworthy and actually have the best of intentions and truly believe that what they're telling you is accurate. But if you have a specific question, I would encourage you to go to the provider and confirm that what they've told you is correct. Because the agent doesn't pay the claim. Okay? So again, very well intended. They're not trying to be misleading. It's not, malpractice or anything like that. Their interpretation, and maybe that's what they were told. When they went through their licensing program and all that kind of stuff, and but again, to Shannon's point, it's the way things are defined, and that has everything to do with whether they pay a claim or not. So I would encourage you to not just trust, your agent, or if your son sells insurance or whatever it is, they may be completely 100% correct, but validate it through the claims department that they are, okay? And then the other thing was to your point about kids not knowing that they have, I don't know if they have long-term care insurance. That's usually followed by, well, they have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they have Medicare. They don't know what it is, because they don't have it themselves. So if they're between the ages of 30 and 50, chances are they haven't thought about this yet either, unless they're just really good planners. So that's where that gift class comes in, because then you can have conversations about stuff. So there you go.
So I'm gonna talk about the gift class. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Julie, when is yours?
Ours will be every Thursday in April, and we do have a few seats left, and then you've got one in April, mid-April, on Saturdays via Zoom. Ours will be at Zion, so it's in person and or Zoom. And it's through Villages OKC. If that's something you're interested in, you guys have those little sheets on your table. We're going to do a gift giveaway, but you could write on the bottom of that, I'm interested in that gift class you talked about, and we'll make sure we get in touch with you. And we teach it all the time, so it's all year.
What's the name of the class?
It's called The Gift. It stands for Gathering Information for Transition. And it is, oh my gosh, yeah.
And guys, it's a really good class to take with your children, with your daughter, with your son, because you're doing it for yourself and you're teaching them how to do it for themselves and for their kids and for your grandkids.
So let me just tell you what it is, since she brought it up. Gift is, it's the brainchild of Marilyn Olson together with Julie. A binder that you're putting together, basically. It goes beyond your retirement planning and your end-of-life planning and talks about all of the areas of your life. If you think about during COVID and how many people were hospitalized for a period of time, and during that time, someone had to run their life. They had to pay their bills, they had to feed their pets, they had to take care of insurance claims, they had to talk to doctors, etc., right? This is a binder that in the gift class you create, you compile, and you are able to literally hand that binder to someone in your life, and it's like your operations manual, okay? And that person then knows all the key players, they know how to contact them, they know what you would want or not want, and then when you're back and you're good, they can hand the binder back to you, and you're back in business. But you're not out of business while you're having whatever challenge it might be in your life. Does that make sense? Okay, my dad and I had this conversation the other day. He owns a business, and he said, so Nikki, if something were to happen to me, I would want you to run the business, because I have so much time. Now, mind you,
To go to Gary.
To go to Gary, Oklahoma, which is 50 miles away, and by the way, it's a liquor store. The Able Commission has some issues with me running a liquor store without a license. Okay? So if that's what my dad wants, then guess what? There's some planning that has to go into that. So in his gift binder, we would need to have what needs to happen for Nikki to be able to run his business should he be out of commission for a while. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what the gift does, and that's what we're doing. Again, Julie mentioned, just write it on your eval, and somebody will contact you about all the details on that. Okay, so I want to talk about on the planning, the prepping for who to help clean out a house. Okay, Shannon. So we could teach a 3-day class on this and not cover it all. So I'm going to give you the paraphrase version. Okay, first of all, people worry too much about their stuff. As a whole, and that is the one thing that can hang them up. And here's what I mean by worry about it. Most people think they have to go through all of their stuff before they can move. And what we tell people is all you need to do is go through and decide what you want to keep, and that's it. Everything else can be dealt with after you move, in most cases. There are very few situations where the person needs to deal with it before they move, okay? It's particularly true if you have a home that you own outright, or you live with family currently and you don't have a mortgage to pay. It's almost always, 99% of the time, better to move first. So imagine this. You're going on a 3-month vacation, and you're going to furnish your own place for those 3 months. You go through your house and you go, I would want this and 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 this, and you pack it. What's left, majority of the time, is going to be things like sentimental items, family heirlooms, and stuff you don't want anymore. Okay? So most people think, well, I got to make decisions about all this stuff before I can move. And my response is, you make those decisions after you move. All you have to make decisions about before you move is what you want to take. All right? Now, that sounds backwards, right? But I can tell you that when people do it this way, they go,
Okay, so yesterday, I had a client, we closed on his house, he just sold it. He's moving to a community in Mustang, very excited. And I asked him, so are you excited about moving? He goes, I really am. I said, so they're coming to pack you tomorrow. We're doing his a little backwards, but it's a different situation. They're packing him actually as we speak and loading him up. He goes, well, that was pretty stressful, Shannon. I said, it was. Well, how'd that go? He said, well, I finally got, these are his words, I got in the mindset when I was so stressed that I could only work 30 minutes at a time going through this house. But it hit me that I'm going through a closet that I've not even opened in the last 2 years. So is there anything in that closet I really needed? He said I didn't need anything in that closet. And the packers that we send do a really good job of making sure that he has what he needs. So he never thought about a shower curtain or a shower curtain rod, because he doesn't have that at his house, but they made sure that he has those things. They made sure he had the basics of what he needed to move in, and he's by himself. But it was very, it made me smile when he said, Shannon, I hadn't opened that closet in 2 years. He said, I don't need it. He said, it made my packing and decision making go much smoother, because what I'm taking now is what I have used in the last year, and if it's something I have not, it's not going with me. I don't need it.
So here's the exercise you could be doing while you're in planning mode, okay? Because you're in planning mode. You're not in action mode yet, presumably. So if you're still in planning mode, then what would be great to do is go through and do an evaluation of your house while you don't have to do it, while there's no emotional energy around it. So you go through and you don't dig into anything, don't open up stuff, just stand in the room and look around and ask yourself, how much of this room do I actually use, number one? How much of the stuff in this room do I have an affinity for? Am I attached to it? Do I feel about it? Do I like it? Do I want to take it with me? And how much of this stuff should be either donated to someone else or given as a gift to my kids or whatever, right? You know what I saw the other day? I was in Geary visiting my nieces, and a woman walked into the city hall while we were standing there with her high school letter jacket on. Now this was a 30, 40-year-old woman with her high school letter jacket on. How many of you had a letterman's jacket or a band jacket or some sort of a DECA jacket? Yeah. How many of you still have it hanging somewhere? Some of you do. Who's going to get that? And by the way, how many of you that jacket isn't yours? It's your children's or grandchildren's. What are you going to do with that jacket? Okay? Those are the questions that people struggle with. Like they go, what am I going to do with this closet full of stuff that was my son's? And now maybe the son passed. Maybe the son was killed in a car accident or passed away earlier. And so there's a sentimental attachment to that stuff. That makes it much harder, doesn't it? When you aren't attached or the stuff is just theirs, here's the way that gets done. You call them and you say, guess what, I'm moving, and I'm moving on May 15th, and anything left here after May 15th is getting dealt with whether you've come to get it or not. So if you want it, May 15th is your deadline. There's a letter jacket in the closet. Oh, but what about that letter jacket, Mom? I don't want it. Do you want it? No, I don't want it. Well, then it's going in an estate sale, or it's going to be donated. Or somebody can burn it. I don't care. But you need, you know, that's what I'm saying. So the key issue here is asking yourself, what are you attached to?
Well, and also, you're going to be real surprised at how often the answer is, well, Mom, I don't want that.
I didn't even know you still had it.
Yeah, correct. I didn't know you still had that. Or, oh, I completely forgot about it. Let me come get it. Which is great. Yay, come get it fast.
You know why you know why I would be attached to it? I just thought of this. I'm going to interrupt you because here, that letter jacket, who paid for it? Most of the time. If you paid for it, guess what? You still see value in it. Like, I paid $200 for that letter jacket. We're not getting rid of that letter jacket. Right? So I guess my whole point in that is,
you need to know, I paid for my Letterman's jacket. It is with my mom, and it's in a shadow box on the wall in my house. Now, the question of where it's going to go, I don't know. Right now it's staying on the wall in my house. But I do need to decide where it's going to go, or it's going to be set free. And my set free is donation or trash, one or the other. But, you know, it moves on to the next level of life.
My letter jacket went in the dumpster.
Mine's in a shadow box with the mom.
Yeah. It was hard to do, but I did it because I'm not going to wear it. And I asked my son if he wanted it. Well, first of all, he couldn't wear it. It's tiny compared to him. Right? Who wants their parents' high school letter jacket?
One question.
Yeah.
What, don't you have to have your house cleared out basically before you put it on the market?
Good question.
So I'm going to I want to address the time because Chris is telling me it's 11 o'clock.
I want to say one thing.
Oh, well,
that you kind of left out. Or
he kept going like this. I thought he was saying 1 minute.
Let's throw that at you. On your stages of readiness, she talked about this for you. It's the same for your children.
It's the same for your
Correct.
kids.
So keep that in mind is when you're telling your kids about these things that they need to deal with, they're somewhere here too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris's dad told him he wanted to clear out the attic and he would like some help with it. And Chris was like, sure, no problem. Well, our schedules are busier than theirs, and so we scheduled time to do it. But if he'd have just said, hey, Chris, I need you to come over today and pull this stuff down out of the attic, that would have been problematic, right? We'd have tried to do it, but it could have been problematic. So again, planning, yeah. What were you going to say?
So your question about should your house be empty before you sell it? It is simpler for you if you move first and you take all what we call the yeses, the things that are going, then the estate liquidator or however where it is decided that your house would be liquidated, you can then empty it and sell it then. It is simpler for you to show the house empty and that you're not having to worry about people coming in and out. And they can then imagine themselves there rather than seeing your stuff and imagining you there.
And guys, I will tell you.
Does that answer your question?
A house photographs better empty. And I know people don't think that. And I'm just going to address the elephant in the room because people have been told historically that they need to stage their home and blah, blah, blah. Guys, here's the deal. When you've lived in a house for 50 years or 30 years, or in my case, even just 5 or 6 years, my stuff's out of date. And so what's happening is people are going on the internet and they're comparing new homes with your home. And the new homes don't look anything like our home, not even my home, because I haven't done the things that they're doing currently that they've only been doing for about, say, the past 5 years. They're gray. The houses are gray walls with white woodwork. They're kind of changing it up slightly now with some other things. But here's what I'll tell you. Your furnishings are beautiful in your home for you, but not necessarily for the new owner. So what happens is we take photographs of it, and my friend Jean that's moving to Dallas, a good example is her home when you walk in, it's lovely. It's really well done. It feels good, it's comfortable. But she has a lot of furniture, and she has beautiful Oriental rugs. Well, so when you're in the house, it feels fine, but we took the photographs. She wanted to stay in the house before she moved. She didn't want to sell it empty, so we agreed. We're flexible. But here's what happened. I got the pictures, and I looked at the pictures, and I showed them to her, and I said, look at how busy this room looks. The room looked so cluttered and busy because there were all these shapes and colors and all these things. You couldn't even see the room. All you saw was the stuff.
You could not. I actually did not know she had hardwood floors until I got to the house to do the open house.
So I went in, I pulled the Oriental rug out, I took a couple of chairs out, I pulled the rug out of the kitchen out, and I rolled them up, and we put them in the garage, and we reshot that room. Now, Shannon said to me, Nikki, you don't think it'll make that much difference? And I said, I really do. Now, I don't know if it did or not, but when you looked at the new pictures versus the old pictures, it looked totally different. So you have to remember, people are choosing to look at your house based on the photographs.
And in full disclosure, the house went under contract a week after the new pictures were posted.
So I'd like to think that was because of my brilliant idea, but we don't.
We'll give Nikki the credit for that one.
So here's the other thing, guys. I want to address the real estate market. So Shannon, right now, do you have to do anything to your house to sell it?
Yes, no.
It depends.
It depends. It does depend. I can tell you that, do you have to put new windows in your house to sell it? No. Do you have to replace the hot water tank? No. If it's working, no. Do you have to put new carpet in your house? No. Do you need granite? No. So none of those things do you need to do to sell your house. No.
Okay, so it depends on price, right?
Depends on price, it depends on condition, it depends on where you're moving, it depends on where you're living. There's a lot of variables when it comes to selling a house.
Most of the houses, I'm going to quiz you for a second. We sell about 75 homes a year, give or take. So this year and the end of last year, what's the average time our houses have stayed on the market in, say, the 150 to 300 range?
3 days.
3 days. How many of them sold, Shannon, with multiple offers the day that it went on the market?
About 60% of those.
Did those people have to do anything to their home prior to putting it on the market and selling it? Prior to putting it on the market?
The only thing that they did in a few cases is we put roofs on houses because they needed to be based on age.
Okay.
It's the only thing that we addressed prior to them doing it, other than a good cleaning.
Okay.
We do good cleaning.
So do we have, I know that we're at the top of the hour. Are you guys okay with us going over about 15 minutes to deal with these issues? If anybody needs to go, we understand.
Okay.
So I think do we have till 11? Okay. So I know you guys have lunch here sometime, right? Okay.
Yeah, they're doing lunch. They're recording out.
Okay, good deal. All right. So the issue of what was I getting ready to say? Oh, sorry.
Getting the house ready for sale.
Yeah. So inspections is what I was going to say. So what a lot of people don't realize is that you put a house on the market, you sell it, you get it under contract, and then the buyer inspects it. So Shannon, talk about the inspection process and what happens during that phase of the sale.
Okay, so once a house has been put under contract, you agree to the price, the terms, then the buyer has the opportunity to do a full home inspection, which is highly recommended. I can't think of a time when someone didn't do a home inspection, and a termite inspection. Both of those are a buyer responsibility. That means they pay for it. But they are also responsible to ensure that that home inspection report and that termite report are given to the seller. The buyer goes through a home inspection report and they pick what they would like to be corrected from that home inspection report. I am not talking about correcting the paint or the wallpaper on the wall or the carpet on the floor. It is things that are broke. They're going to be looking for things that need to be repaired or replaced because they do not work, not because they're old. Something can be dated, and a hot water tank can be 12 years old and be fully functional and work great. HVAC, a heat and air unit, can be 15 years old, and if it's been maintained twice a year for spring and fall, it's got another 5 to 10 years in it.
So Shannon, how long are the lists that these people bring on houses that we consider well kept and well maintained?
Okay, so an inspection report can be anywhere from 15 to 35 pages, and that's on a well-maintained home. Now, big deep breath. And what you're going to get is only what the buyer wants to be repaired. And again, that 15 to 35 pages is not things that are broke in your house. It's giving the buyer a picture of that house. That's things that maybe be maintained long term. It's educating a buyer. So my sellers see that report, and I'm going to tell you, I'm fanning people. Take big deep breaths. This is not what they want you to repair. They're going to probably want you to repair anywhere from 7 to 10 items on that list. Again, things that are broke, and it could be less than that. My sellers, I'm going to tell you guys, sellers are great. They love their house. They've lived there a long time. They take great pride in it. And they think that this inspection is a test. So I am going to get an A+ on this inspection, Shannon. They won't even have a page. They're not going to bring you anything because it's perfect. There's nothing broken in this house. I have checked it. And I've checked it twice. And I have to explain this is not an A, B, or C test. They're going to find things. The inspector's job is to find things that need to be corrected.
If they don't find anything, they don't feel like they've earned their money.
Yeah, they don't get paid.
Does that make sense?
So you gotta earn your keep. So that's what this is.
So this is where I'm just going to kind of brag a little bit on the way that that's handled by our team, because every realtor handles this differently. But the key here is, remember, that realtor that you hired works for you, presumably, right? They're working with you. So therefore, their job is to help you negotiate what the buyer gets done or not gets done. You don't have to do everything on that list that they ask for, by the way. Sometimes it makes sense to do that, other times it may not. So we don't want to spend a lot of time there. I just wanted you to know that there is a process of inspecting the house, and I don't want people to panic about it. It's a pretty normal process, and we do it all the time. So.
Well, and part of that as a real estate professional, we have resources. So when I bring my client that list that needs to be repaired, I also come prepared with a list of estimates. I'm not a teacher, and I don't try to correct people very often because my grammar is not always perfect, but my red pen between Chris and I is very good at editing that list. So we'll mark things off like, oh no, we're not doing that. And oh no, that's not going to be done. You wanted that wall painted, oh my gosh, that is a cosmetic item, that gets marked off. And then we go back, and that's part of that consultation with us and that information we help provide.
It's a renegotiation, is all it is.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to deal with this stuff, and then we'll wrap it up and answer any last minute questions that you have, okay? So we teach classes on the downsizing process, okay? Today wasn't really designed for that, and so we didn't spend a lot of time on it. But I wanted to just give you a few do's and don'ts, okay, to leave with today. One, if you're in the planning stage, and you know that when you move, you're going to have too much stuff, and you're not going to take it all. Don't immediately start donating it or throwing it away or giving it away. Don't do that until you have met with someone about your plans. Because I will tell you, we had a gentleman just yesterday, I found out from the estate liquidator that he had a significant proceeds check from his estate sale, and his original comment to me was, Nikki, I'm just going to donate it. And I said, well, you're welcome to do that. However, the people that come pick it up to take it to wherever they're going to take it, first of all, a lot of them aren't taking donations right now because they don't have the space for it. But you're going to have to pay to have a mover do that if they don't come pick it up. So now you're paying to get rid of stuff. And instead, he received a check. What happens is when we start to, there's a difference between downsizing, by the way, and decluttering, okay? Decluttering means I'm staying here and I want my house to be a better space than it is now. Feel free to declutter all you want. But if you're going to downsize in the next, say, year to 2 years, and you start giving things away, then what happens is when we move you and we look at what's left for a potential estate sale, you could be 2 or 3 boxes away from the estate liquidator saying, yes, there's enough to do a sale, or no, there's not. Does that make sense? So don't give a bunch of stuff away unless you're just decluttering and you're wanting to make your space more livable. But if you're going to downsize, don't give a bunch of stuff away in advance.
Or it's that china set that your daughter does want, then give that to her now.
Absolutely.
If there's a silver piece or a jewelry piece, or if there's a
high school letterman's jacket.
Or a high school letterman's jacket. Give that.
Make your kids come get their stuff.
Correct.
Because that is also holding you back. Okay.
It will also allow you to know if they do want it or not. Because I know that I have several clients who will tell me that well, my daughter, I'm giving this to my daughter, I'm giving this to my son. And I said, well, have you talked to them about that? Do they have room for it and do they want it? And they said, no, I haven't talked to them yet. Well, why don't you ask them? And the answer comes back, well, she said she didn't want it. So ask, and then that adds to your estate pile.
Well, and grandkids are the other thing. So a lot of people are going to bypass the children, but their grandkids, they want them to have certain things, but they don't have a place for it yet. And so they say, can you keep it until I'm ready for it? And the answer is, no, I'm moving, and therefore you either take it now or it's going away. You guys, have you noticed all around the metro area the proliferation of storage bins, storage buildings? Yeah? These guys are building storage buildings like nobody's business.
Or 3-car garages. Okay, the biggest secret in the world is nobody has 3 cars. They have 2 cars, one parks outside, one parks outside, one parks inside, and the other 2 are for storage. And then they move on to the storage units.
So, by the way, I would beg you to give your kids permission to get rid of your stuff. Yesterday, I was having my hair done, and the lady next to me said, the lady who works there said, my mom and my mother-in-law did not want me to get rid of any of their stuff. I said, where is it? She said, it's in my house. I look like a hoarder. She said, I have furniture, and she described it. And she said, I can't hardly get through my house because of all the furniture. I said, why did you do that? And she said, because my mother does not want me to get rid of it until she is gone. I said, where's your mother? She said, in memory care. Memory care.
She's gone.
So do you understand that the guilt that they feel and the responsibility that they carry with them to do what you ask them to do, they do it to their own detriment in many cases. Now me, not so much. Me, that stuff would have been gone a long time ago, and my dad, as far as he's concerned, would have thought it was in storage. I'd have just told him, Dad, it's in storage, I'd have lied, and we'd have sold it. But most people aren't me because they're not in my line of work. You guys get that? Most people are going to want to honor what their parents asked them to do, and they're going to do that to the best of their ability, and they're going to do it sometimes at their expense, right? Their expense. So why don't you just get a storage? She said, this is too expensive. So she's living in a hoarder house to honor her mother.
I've had several that have had storage units full, and they've paid for the storage units for over 10 years, some up to 15. And it's like what they could have done with that money, of what they're paying every month, probably paid off their house in some cases.
Okay, so let me give you a couple of resources. We're going to do a drawing. Do you guys have your registration roster back there, Julie?
Yes.
Yeah? So we're going to have, where's my Downsizing Made Easy guide back here? We're going to give away a Downsizing Made Easy guide. Julie, how are you giving away the gift? While she's coming up, on your table, not everyone had one, they were in the middle. There's a club that we created this year, just started this year. We got about 15 or 16 people registered for it now, households. And the reason that we're doing it is because people that are in the planning stage want more specific information. And you guys, some of you asked questions, you're not quite ready yet, but you want to plan, that's what this club is about. So if you're not ready to move next week, next month, even this year, but you're going to do it in the next 5 years, and you want to be a part of a smaller, more intimate setting every month where we plan, like our next meeting that we're having in April, we're going to have an estate liquidator there to answer very specific questions about the estate sale process. We're going to have a home inspector come out on one of our meetings and talk about the home inspection. So very specific planning items. Feel free to join. There is a fee to join, but you receive that back. It's like a deposit, if you will, when you do business with our team in any way in the future. Okay, so feel free to do that. And then the other thing is those seminars that are on that longer piece of paper, the Senior Living Truth Series. If you don't have one of those, you'll want to grab one of those. These are, the next 3 anyway, are a series on downsizing. Concordia is a major sponsor of this. They've been involved since the very beginning 6 years ago. And a lot of the people that move credit their planning to some of the seminars that we've done as a group. So,
and guys, normally the downsizing seminar we've done in one setting before. And this is the first time we're doing it in 3 different sessions. So rather than trying to cram it all into an hour and kind of being an overload, these 3 sessions will be really valuable.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to give away 2 books. by Brad Breeding. What's the deal with retirement communities? Those are awesome.
Brad is a national representative of this industry. He represents a software program that helps community partners share what they do, how they work with people like yourselves.
He's very unbiased, and he's very well versed in communities like Concordia.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's not about Concordia specifically.
No, right. Okay, so numbers. Do they have numbers on a roster?
Yes, we've got.
Where's your roster?
We've got. Actually, what I think we're going to do. You guys have cards at your table, right? Little cards at your table. If you will put your name and contact information on there. If you wanted to know about the gift, make sure you write that on there. And we'll do a drawing, and we'll draw for yours, we'll draw for these, and on the gift ones, I'll sort those out separately, and one of the people that is on that list will get a gift membership for free.
That's $199 value, you guys.
Yeah.
They charge $199 for that.
And
it's also
it gives you a membership to Villages OKC, so yeah. So we will make sure that you guys get that. So Charlie's going to walk around. If you'll just put your card up in the air, she'll come by and get it, and then we'll draw names, okay?
All right, so while they're doing that, I want to just give you a couple more tips on the downsizing process. And so what I would suggest to you is, I said this already, give your kids their stuff. Don't start donating unless you've met with somebody about the possibility of an estate sale. And meet with either our team or someone like us that does move management to help you make decisions about what you do need to give away and what you don't. Because there are questions that people have about, does my refrigerator get sold or not? Does my washer and dryer stay with the house? All these really specific questions to you, we want to answer so that you're making decisions ahead of time and not in the midst of your move.
And also, if you're thinking that to sell your house, you need to renovate your kitchen, or you have this long laundry list of things that you think you have to do to your house, please call us. We absolutely will come through and do a walkthrough with you. No obligation at all. We'll just walk through your house with your list. I can tell you I've not left a house yet that the list is not cut in half, if not into that they're down to a third of things that they really should address. So it really does help lighten their load by the time we leave that conversation.
Well, I had a guy last week or 2 weeks ago tell me he was going to put $7,000 worth of siding on his house, and they're getting ready to sell it, like, soon. And I sent Shannon out and I said, be sure and look at that. And what'd you tell him?
He had a couple of spots that need to be touched up, paint and some wood replaced, but the house was lovely. There was no reason to put $7,000 in siding that he would not get back on his investment.
So don't spend money until you really talk to somebody. And by the way, most realtors are not like us. I'm just going to tell you up front. Most realtors would have said, yeah, paint it, carpet it, do all these things to it. They want it to look like an HGTV house because it makes their job easier. It's not necessarily best for you. Yes, ma'am?
I enjoy when we talked about between decluttering and downsizing and talking to the children. But I want you to address more of the emotional stress that you go through. If I were to want to relocate from my house to living, I would be okay as long as I'm in the same community. That would be fine. My problem is if my children want to move me out of state. What they don't understand is you're taking me somewhere that I have to move. I have to get new doctors, and I have to establish an emotional connection.
So can I address that with you real quick? So what Betty was saying is that in some cases it's more the emotional stuff, right? So in her specific case, her kids may want her to move out of state near them. And that's a difficult transition. So here's what I would say to you is this. Anybody who's contemplating moving closer to their kids versus staying in their current community, Julie and her team do an amazing job of coaching people through that decision every day, because that comes up a lot. People move here from out of area, and people move out of area from here. So guys, I will tell you this. Most of the time, if they have to make the decision for you, you will move closer to them. Because it's easier for who? For them. Okay? If something happened to my dad and he could not care for himself, I am not moving to Gary, Oklahoma. He is going to move near me. Does that make sense? But he is perfectly capable of making a decision for himself. So he says, Nikki, I'm going to move to Concordia. I go, great. I don't care if Concordia is in Timbuktu, as long as I know he is going to get the care he needs, right? Does that make sense? So for most adult children will tell you they want you near them because they want to be able to check on you, yeah? And here's what I found. How many times we have moved people to be near their kids only to find out that they and their kids have now moved across the country because the kid's job changed, or somebody got married, or something happened, or the economy shifted. Grandchildren happen, yeah. So I'm just going to say, that's a coaching conversation very specific to you, and we do that regularly. We just meet with people, we sit down and we look at the pros and the cons, we look at, and we help coach you on how to have that conversation with those adult children in a way that is beneficial for everybody. So feel free to schedule that with Julie's team or with myself or Shannon.
Right. No, I would agree with that 100%. Okay. So, all right, Charlie, ready? Charlie's gonna.
Drum roll.
All right. All right. So I'm gonna pick one. I'm gonna let Shannon pick one, and we'll let Nikki pick one, and let the first one. And we've got. Now I'm just gonna stick them with our. Here we go. All right. Here we go. All right.
Julie's so
All right. Here we go.
organized.
All right. First one is Susan Lolliger. Did I say that?
Susan, yay! All right, give Susan a hand.
Here you go.
Everybody likes to win stuff, right? Everybody likes to win something.
Very good. Okay. And the next one is Jack Yates.
Jack.
Very good.
Jack. There's two Jacks.
Jack Yates.
That Jack. All
All
right.
right. Very good. And the last one is Susan Greaves.
Oh.
Is that right?
Susan.
Lucky table.
Lucky table. All right.
There you go.
All right, so Chris and Shannon and myself are going to be hanging around. Julie and her team will be hanging around. Julie, you have some instructions.
Yeah, I was going to say, now I know a few of you have talked with Kelly and or Marilyn earlier and have set up an opportunity to take a tour. So if you have Kelly and Marilyn, are you in the room? Yes, okay, so Marilyn is here in the brown jacket. Kelly's over there in the gray, for those of you who have not met the person you've talked to on the phone. And so you can certainly head to them. If there's anybody that would like to take a tour that maybe didn't set up to do that ahead of time, come to me. I will be happy to take you on a tour as well. I would love to give a round of applause to you guys, to Nikki and they know their stuff, guys. They're so great. And I know you talked about somebody making sure that somebody had a shower curtain. That's because they have a move manager. They don't just sell your house. They make sure your move is managed. All the little pieces to it that you don't think about, because maybe the last time you moved was 60 years ago, right? So, all right, thank you guys. Thanks for coming. And again, head to Kelly and or Marilyn. And we're so glad we have little gifts for you on the way out. See Charlie, the charming Charlie back there. And you guys have a great day.